Here, students are comparing the characteristics of school systems in Japan and the United States.
Semester system. Okay, 2 semesters. Do you know anything about Nihon? Year round. Actually 3 trimester. So we call it 1学期、2学期、3学期. You know, we don't say semester.
As students learn about the cultures associated with their target language, it is natural for them to compare the new culture with their own. They learn about different practices, products, and perspectives, and discover that they share many things in common with the people of the culture being studied.
Yo estoy aquí.
¡Ay, caramba!
Pan de muerto y tacos y soda. You look as if you've seen a ghost. Gracias para la comida y soda, pero próximo año, get a better picture.
At Communications Arts High School in San Antonio, Rosana Perez and her Spanish language students are making comparisons of cultural perspectives. They're comparing the Mexican holiday, the Day of the Dead, with the U.S. holiday of Halloween.
Papi, yo también.
¿Por qué?
Porque mi abuela favorita está muerta.
Niños, es okay. Ella es en un lugar mejor ahora.
It was a learning scenario for the Day of the Dead, and what I planned with my students was this. At first we did a learn activity because I wanted to know what they knew about the Day of the Dead, and then they start making the questions, what do they wanted to learn? So that was our first day, and that day we also did papel picado to decorate the classroom so it looked like kind of festive to celebrate the Day of the Dead. Then the next 2 days, we went to the computer lab at our school, and we went to the internet, and they started researching their questions about what they wanted to learn. The next day, we read a story, a skit about the Day of the Dead that was making a comparison with Halloween. So then our scenario was going to be that they were going to write their own skits. But what you were seeing was mostly the students making the comparison with Halloween and the Day of the Dead and how they related to their young lives because they are teenagers, and some of them thought it was like kind of funny at the beginning, but then when they started making the research, they said, hey, I mean, this is very interesting how Mexican people see that different from how we see that. So they got really into it.
In addition to the Day of the Dead and Halloween, educators use other holidays to compare cultural perspectives.
Another time that we do a lot of comparing as far as culture is around Christmas time because of the Day of the Three Kings. The Three Kings was in January versus the Santa Claus. The preparation for Christmas, like the posadas in Mexico. And we talk about the North American traditions and beliefs, you know, on Christmas and compared to what they do in the Hispanic world. We sing. Usually it comes out because of singing, because we sing a lot during Christmas time, the villancicos that come from Spain, and so that brings out the different traditions, things that they do during that time of the year. How, you know, in the United States, the students say, well, yeah, we put up a Christmas tree, but in the Hispanic world, you know, they put a nativity scene. That is their Christmas tree. And how the children, you know, look forward to the Day of the Three Kings, because the Three Kings are the ones who bring the gifts.
Le robe ici, je pense que c'est pour une occasion spéciale. Le robe ici avec les garçons ici.
One more example of language learners making cultural comparisons are these French 3 pre-AP students at Rayburn High School in Pasadena. Teacher Mirella LeBlanc has her students making presentations to the class that compare products and perspectives. They're examining, in the target language, the similarities and differences in fashions for young people in France and the United States.
Today we're seeing a comparison of clothes that teenagers wear. I asked them to think of what they think that French teenagers would wear and what would they wear in particular occasions. What would they wear for, let's say, the prom or going to a dance, or one girl had going to a date, and some of those sports, going to the beach in and that sort of thing. And then I asked them to compare. I asked them what do they think, and some of the students have they have bought magazines, did a little research, bought a magazine for what's in fashion in France right now, and that sort of thing. That there is a difference. I was trying to get them to think that I think the French wear more hats than we do, but that sort of thing. So that's what you saw, a comparison of clothes, the teenagers. I really think that if you make the language pertinent, and if you zero in on what they like and make the class kind of fun and things they like, it works well.
Teacher LeBlanc's students also make language comparisons as they correspond with pen pals in France. They exchange letters with students in the south of France, mistakes and all. Her students learn by comparing the errors they and their pen pals make, writing to one another in the target language.
The letter in English is like, I have 2 brothers Youngs, okay? Because she does not correct the English, I don't correct the French. I have the Hares Browns, because it's translated from French. Right. And, you know, and I keep telling them, look, this is learning a language. You have to take a chance, and it takes a while before you get it right. So, you know, so we do a lot of comparison in culture.
Finally, students who make comparisons of their first and target languages and cultures learn how languages and cultures impact one another.
Sandwich, hamburger, pizza. Now, what do the French worry about, more so than other countries perhaps, is the deterioration of their language. They want the language to stay as perfect as it is, and it's been contaminated by words like this. And again, this is a French perspective. Contamination would be a word like one of these that they take from English and make it French. How? Simply by giving it a French pronunciation.
At Sandra Day O'Connor High School in San Antonio, Estella Getson's French class is working up a good appetite talking about foods. She asks her students to compare French and English vocabulary and note the differences, but also to suspend any value judgments they might make.
Well, the lesson that we started briefly on Friday is a very brief introduction to foods in French and the concept of the indefinite article. And when you talk about foods, you can very easily then show the students, like we did in the classroom, what foods can you think of in English that we now have learned are used in French also with the French accent. And conversely, what foods now can you think of that we use in English that probably came from the French? So with that food vocabulary, the comparison between the two is very easy to make. Un croissant, masculin. Voilà un croissant. A lot of times, if we're talking about things with comparing one country culture to another, I always tell the students that if nothing else, they remember things French are different from things American. If they just leave this class with that concept, then I'll be satisfied, because then that means that their perception of another culture is not a closed perception based on a stereotype, but it's simply an appreciation of something that's different.
Teacher Getson wants her students, even the beginning language learners, to discover for themselves that different languages use different structures to express the same idea.
In the first year, you have a lot of opportunities to focus on one particular thing and show, for instance, today with tu as faim, it says, literally, do you have hunger? Now, obviously, in English, we don't say it that way. Are you hungry? And we talk about this over and over again. In English, we say, are you hungry? When the French want to say the same thing, they say it this way. It's just a different way. French is not a word-for-word translation of what we say in English. It's its own unique, distinct language. And all we're learning is how they say things when we say things. We mean this, they say this. So it gives you a chance to hit that over and over again.
Making cultural comparisons can also help learners of a classical language, like Latin.
Our major focus is to read Latin. As somebody said, Latin is a conversation with the past. And so as long as they can keep up with their reading, if they know enough vocabulary, if they can keep up with the forms and vocabulary, and they can read those things, that's a wonderful opportunity, again, for us to find out what Roman life was like and compare that with our own life.
In Randy Thompson's class at Churchill High School in San Antonio, Randy is asking his Latin students to compare the layout of their hometown with how ancient planners laid home.
And downtown is also in a block.
You each have a map of the general area of San Antonio, and there's an inset focusing on downtown San Antonio. You know what's coming up, right? Right. What elements of Roman city planning show up in San Antonio city planning, such as there is, and in the downtown area in particular?
They had an advanced water supply system.
If you're going to have people, is there a lesson there for San Antonio? We need to provide water for San Antonio, so we have our droughts annually. Well, Romans had a system for dealing with that. Kids are fairly familiar with Roman city planning, and so they did some brainstorming on what that implies, the major features of that, and they got in their groups, they each got a copy of a map of San Antonio, and it's remarkable how many similarities there are, how that idea of Roman city planning still shows up today in city planning. Here we are thousands of miles and millennia away, but still there's a with the government buildings and buildings all tied in exactly the same way that Roman city planning was done.
Randy says comparing the ancient culture of the Romans with our own society today is a natural for students of Latin.
I guess no matter what you want to do with your students, Latin's a wonderful vehicle for almost anything. And you know what they're doing is good. Everything they get is going to be something new. We don't have any native speakers coming in here, and when they leave, they're able to read Latin. They're able to, again, communicate with the past, and they're able to see how the ancient world contrasts and compares with our own world, and hopefully they can understand our own world and their own place in it a little better because they've seen what happened in the ancient world, which is so incredibly parallel to modern America.
Another Latin teacher who implements the program goal of comparisons into his lesson plans is Vince McGee at Lake Highlands High School in the Richardson Independent School District. Vince's class uses computers to research a lesson on Roman views of death and the underworld.
This is a map of the underworld as best as we can tell from their writings. This is supposed to be a lake or a crater, and that's supposed to be a cave entrance there. And the rest of it's underground, and there are different areas to it. So first thing that's different is in what you're used to, people die, they go to heaven maybe, and that's going up. Well, at the Romans, you all went down, good or bad. You went to the underground area.
Teacher McGee also helps his students to make comparisons that show the influences of ancient literature on the literature of a slightly more modern society.
In 2,000 years of time, people still write about the same things. We think a lot of our stories are new. Well, the Romans wrote it, like Romeo and Juliet, which Julius Caesar wrote. There's actually a Roman myth, only found in Latin, it's not found in Greek, about Pyramus and Thisbe. It reads very much like Romeo and Juliet. In fact, now scholars think that probably Shakespeare knew Latin, probably studied Ovid, the Roman poet, and probably read that particular myth and made it into a play.
To summarize, the Comparisons program goal both supports and is supported by the program goal of communication. By making cultural and linguistic comparisons, teachers help students to internalize language and culture. Language teachers have always been good at making comparisons between languages and cultures. But as we've seen, today's most successful teachers have found new and innovative ways to make those comparisons. Thank you for watching Learning Languages Other Than English, a Texas Adventure, Communication and Comparisons. For more information about any of the topics discussed, or to contact any of the individuals who helped in the production of this video, please contact the Languages Other Than English Center for Educator Development at their website at www.cedal.org/LOTE-CED, or contact LOTE CED Director Lillian King Meidlinger at 1-800-476-6861, or contact the LOTE unit at the Texas Education Agency at 1-512-936-2444.